Everybody, it's Matt Scudero with the Credit Research Foundation here with our Platinum partner, Experian, and excited to share with you why collection prioritization matters and how to segment your accounts based on collectability for a more focused approach to your collection activity. And with that, I'm also excited to share with you our next presenter, Allison Tixera.
Great. Thank you so much, Matt, for that warm welcome. And now I'd like to introduce the Experian team. Today, we have Eric Krupp, a senior product manager at Experian, who specializes in collections prioritization. We have Bonnie Garrity, a senior sales consultant at Experian, and she specializes in the trade credit vertical. And then we have myself. I'm Allison Teixeira. I am a senior product marketing manager at Experian, and I also specialize in the trade credit vertical. Now, before we start, I would like to recap our first two micro-learning sessions on scores and score performance. We learned that machine learned scores have an average of 10 to 15% lift versus traditional logistic regression scores. And now here are some statistics to kick off our collections learning. Did you know an average employee spends 29.4 hours per week on collections? And according to many findings, a collections analyst spends only 20% of their time on correspondence and the rest of their time organizing who they should call. And lastly, more than 70% of collection calls are made to customers who would have paid anyway. And now I'd like to turn it over to Eric Krupp to take us through why collections prioritization matters. Eric, I'll turn it over to you.
All right. Thanks, Allie. I appreciate that warm welcome and appreciate those statistics as well. I think they really sum up a lot of the key challenges that many commercial collections divisions face these days, especially with the growing pandemic. One of the problems that we always worry about as a company, and it's always important regardless of what time you're in, is positive cash flow. So I think now more than ever, though, with the pandemic and the struggle of many small businesses that are in many of our clients' portfolios today, it is creating some issues when it comes to delinquency and outstanding debt. And so it's always an important thing to take a look at, but when you evaluate all the different types of methods that are out there today to facilitate recovery of outstanding debt or invoices, there are some key processes that a lot of companies will take, or treatment methods, including sending letters, sending out emails, trying to get phone calls out there to prompt payment. And in some cases where the delinquency is very severe, you may even find those types of accounts or clients pursuing some type of third-party collection agency or some type of legal entity to go to help promote payment and resolution of those outstanding debts. But when you really break it down, regardless of any of those methods that are being utilized, they require some degree of effort and they represent some level of cost to the business itself. So the concept of collections prioritization becomes really key and important, probably more so than ever, mainly because of the fact that you're looking for ways you can apply those treatment strategies in such a way that they help maximize your recovery rate, but at the same time allow you to remain cost effective as a business. And also at the same time, help you manage your resources in the most efficient way possible. So that being the case, what are some of the things that you can do? The first thing that you can do is start leveraging even your own internal data to find ways that you can focus your resources on collecting against those outstanding debts. And Bonnie's going to be talking a little bit more about that later, but just leveraging your own internal data in a way that maximizes those recovery rates and maximizes the way that you can leverage your resources becomes really critical. Because and the second point here is what it allows you to do is to focus on the right customers and to try to avoid those wrong customers that can really suck a lot of the time out and those resources from being as effective as possible within your overall collection process. The other thing to start thinking about is more advanced methodologies, which we've been discussing around our potential scoring models that are out there in the marketplace today, including potentially a collections type of score. But you can feel confident that by integrating some type of third-party information or external information may provide some kind of incremental lift to your overall process. It's a combination of using not only external data, potentially from the bureaus or credit bureaus or other data sources that might be out there, but also leveraging your own internal data as well. And I'm going to turn it over to Bonnie to talk a little bit more about that internal-external process.
Great. Thanks, Eric. So as Eric said, and as Ali stated in some of the original statistics, we know that companies are really having difficulty right now, especially through the pandemic, with their DSO increasing, bad debt on the rise. So what can you do to most efficiently and effectively manage that collection process? A lot of you have even talked about creating your own scores internally, maybe using risk scores to help you prioritize, maybe using account balances or DSO to help you prioritize which accounts to go after. I would suggest that that might not be enough. Using your internal data is really important, and I completely understand why you want to go that direction. But using external data as well is going to give you the bigger, broader picture of your customer base. And that's where we get into the prioritization scoring. So a score created specifically to predict collectability, which accounts are more collectible than others. And in this way, you're going to be able to use your internal data paired with the external data to give you a full, complete picture and allow you to determine which accounts should your team go after and which accounts should you just push directly to a collector or a collection agency or third party to help you collect. So this way, you're going to become more efficient. Your team will be more effective in their collection efforts. And you'll really be able to focus on those where you're going to be able to collect some money. Eric?
Yeah, all great points, Bonnie. And I think when we take a look at or break down some of these internal versus external data elements, this can be very helpful for those out there. When you think about the internal data elements that sort of Bonnie was alluding to, you definitely collect things regarding your own payment history. Obviously, you're managing your own aging file. You're understanding outstanding balances that are out there for each of your clients at both a micro and at a macro level. You can even look at potentially scores from the initial acquisition or the original underwriting of a particular account and have that at your disposal. And of course, if you're pursuing activity on a particular account, having contacts from the credit application and being able to leverage, your own business unit, or maybe if you're leveraging other things related to geography and your own internal profitability models, those things can all help you not only prioritize accounts, but also at the same time allow you to take action to find who you should be contacting in order to resolve those outstanding debts. But as Bonnie was alluding to, being able to bring external data in is incredibly helpful because it does provide more of that 360-degree view of that business outside of just the relationship with you as a potential creditor. So what are some of the external data elements you should be considering? Things such as the overall reported payment history of that particular business, maybe by leveraging other credit bureau or other alternative data sources, looking at other debts, collections, and recovery that may indicate we're seeing additional delinquency or collection activity on a particular company. Firmographic information is also great to include, especially as you get into potential SIC codes and specific industries that highlight, is there maybe more of a trend going on with a particular industry, especially given the current economic climate. And even being able to get an updated score on a particular business could be helpful. As we've been talking about, there are a variety of different scores out there today to predict payment or financial stress. And at the same time, too, you can look at scores that specifically predict for collectability, like we've been talking about, leveraging a collections or recovery score in your process that tells you what is the likelihood I'll be able to collect on this account within, let's say, the next 12 months or whatever that time period may be. And finally, last but not least, looking at commercial skip tracing data, being able to find alternative phone numbers, being able to find alternative addresses and business contacts associated with a company, or even corporate linkage data can provide insights, especially when you're taking action on an account. And you can use that information or intake it in more of an automated way to be able to store that information and then have it at your disposal to take action or pursue those different treatment strategies we were discussing earlier. So if you are looking at leveraging, in particular, a commercial recovery or some type of collection score, there's three key benefits. And Bonnie alluded to these a little bit earlier, but I just wanted to kind of provide a little more context here. The first key benefit is you're going to be able to prioritize those delinquent accounts with a higher likelihood of paying. And that's a great way to quickly and easily understand what segments of my portfolio are looking like we're going to have positive cash flow from. We don't have to necessarily worry about them as much. Perhaps they can self-cure, or perhaps we can use low-touch, low-cost methods in order to get in contact with them to just remind them that, hey, maybe your account's past due. We're looking for payment here. But that's one way that you can segment your portfolio and identify those lower risk clients more easily. The second key benefit is being able to identify those accounts that have a low propensity for payment. And there's different ways that you may want to manage this, either internally or potentially externally. If you know that there may be difficulty, the internal data kind of lines up with what you're seeing externally, and it looks like a low propensity for payment, then perhaps you want to look at using seasoned collectors or more experienced collectors to go out and pursue those payments for possible resolution. And if you're in a situation where maybe you don't have those types of resources internally, you can then perhaps outsource it to a third-party collection agency or even some type of legal entity that can pursue that action. But being able to quickly turn those over could be very helpful from an internal cost standpoint. And the third key benefit is really rounding out your process from a scoring and automation perspective. We all think about scores lots of times for initial account opening or account acquisition, and even for portfolio management purposes for perhaps adjusting credit lines, et cetera. But one of the other things to think about is if there are scores out there for the collection aspect of the B2B life cycle, it allows you to remain consistent, and you can look at automating your workflow from not only the acquisition and portfolio management stage, but also to the back end collections aspects as well. So you can create additional automation, additional workflow, and additional consistency in your process. So definitely some great benefits here to consider from a collection standpoint. So in summary, we wanted to touch on a couple of things when evaluating a collections recovery score or something of that nature within your process, or perhaps even looking at external data to help supplement what you're doing today internally. If you're looking at using a score, think about the type of statistical method that's being leveraged. There are different types of ones out there. You may hear of terms like logistic regression or machine learning models. There's lots of different ones that are out there today, and they can help improve your performance. And as Ali was alluding to earlier in this presentation, the machine learning scores, we're seeing really great lift there. They're outperforming logistic regression models potentially by 10 to 15%. So they can provide better insights into your customers and overall help your overall performance. The other thing to think about, as Bonnie and I were alluding to as well, is prioritizing your accounts. It's not necessarily a holistic, or it's not necessarily you're just pegging yourself to just using a score, but you're leveraging all the data at your disposal, both internal and external, to create those efficiencies and understanding your customer and how to go about pursuing them. And keep in mind, if your business is changing, especially due to the pandemic, and you're seeing an increase in delinquent account volume, you're not going to necessarily be able to get to everybody. And that becomes very frustrating for a lot of collections departments. So how can you leverage a score to potentially automate or to do a better job of segmenting accounts and focusing your efforts as best as possible? And then finally, leveraging that collections prioritization score, being able to identify those accounts that will have a propensity to pay or a very low propensity to pay, and easily manage them within your overall portfolio. And the bottom line gains here is you're just going to be able to focus your efforts better and protect your receivables and right size that commercial portfolio, especially if it's undergoing some stress given the economic environment today.
So what are the next steps that we're suggesting to see if this type of score might be helpful to your team? I think you need to find a data technology partner to assist you in determining if there is a collection or collection recovery score that might be helpful to you. Get consultation on that score to see how you might be able to use that score in conjunction with your current internal process. Then you want to score your entire portfolio of collection accounts to determine if this score is actually going to impact you in terms of your collection efforts. Maybe it's a good thing to do a test analysis, maybe a segment of your population, to see if this score is actually going to have an impact, and then take those insights back to apply them to your entire portfolio. So please be sure to tune in for our live webinar next month, Behind the Scores.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Bonnie and Eric. Such a great session today on collections prioritization and why it matters. And now I'd like to turn it over to Matt.
Thank you for joining our session on collection prioritization. In case you missed it, you can watch the video here at crfonline.org. Come join us for our live webinar where we'll answer all of your questions on why scores matter, portfolio management on June 15th of 2021. Again, I also like to thank our Platinum partner, Experian, for sharing these 3 topics with us. I hope you find value in it just as much as I did. Have a great day, folks.